I was halfway through my turkey sandwich, trying not to think about the kid who threw up in the chair right before lunch, when I opened my email and almost dropped my phone. Subject line: Congratulations, grand prize winner, Coastal Lens photo contest. I blinked, checked the sender, then opened it. I had entered that contest months ago on a whim. Just uploaded a sunset shot I took in Rocky Point last year. I'd forgotten all about it, but the email was legit. I read the words twice. You've won the grand prize, a fully deeded beachfront property in St. Augustine, Florida, valued at $3.2 million. I nearly choked on my sandwich. $3.2 million? I sat there in the break room of Desert Palms Dental Clinic, with crusty scrubs and a lukewarm Diet Coke, feeling like I'd slipped into someone else's life. The rest of the office buzzed around me, phones ringing, the receptionist complaining about her ex again. But it all faded out. I stared at that number on my screen like it might disappear if I blinked. I'd never even owned a new couch, let alone a house worth more than my entire life savings times 100. The place I lived in? A 2-bedroom duplex with peeling paint and a swamp cooler that gave out every July. My truck? A '99 Ford Ranger that rattled like a shopping cart every time I hit a bump. I worked 4 days a week cleaning teeth and 2 Saturdays a month just to keep up with rent and groceries. No vacations, no big splurges. I'd lived tight for years because my family never let me forget what I owed them. I'd bailed out my sister Tina twice. Once for rent, once for a car down payment she never paid back. My brother Mark used to show up asking for just $100 here or there, swearing he'd Venmo it back next Friday. Still waiting on that. Even my mom hit me up once when her boyfriend dumped her and she needed help with bills. I gave what I could. They all forgot real quick. And not once did any of them offer to return the favor. I stared at the screen and felt this wild mix of shock and adrenaline and something close to fear. This wasn't just a lucky break. This was a whole new life. And I knew one thing for damn sure. I wasn't telling a soul. Not yet. I shoved my phone in my pocket, stood up, and dumped the rest of my sandwich in the trash. Back to work like nothing happened. I finished the afternoon in a daze, smiled at patients, polished teeth, handed out travel-size floss like nothing had changed. But inside, I was already 10 steps ahead, thinking about how to claim a multi-million-dollar house without becoming the family ATM overnight. By the time I got home that night, I'd already Googled half a dozen real estate attorneys in Tucson. Most were useless: wills, divorces, probate. I finally found a firm downtown that dealt with asset protection and called the next morning on my break. When I told the receptionist I needed to speak with someone about a property I won in a national contest, she paused long enough to make me nervous, then scheduled me for a consult. The attorney's name was Clayton Ross. Late 40s, crisp suit, didn't waste words. His office smelled like leather and paper and money, stuff I never had much of. "So," he said, after shaking my hand and motioning for me to sit, "let's talk about this beach house." I slid the printed email across his desk. "I haven't told anyone yet, not even my family." "Smart," he said, barely glancing at the paper before looking back at me. "First thing you need to understand. Once your name's on a public deed, people will find out. Friends, family, strangers who live for this kind of thing." I nodded. "That's what I'm trying to avoid." "Then don't take title in your own name. We set up a holding company, anonymous. You own the company owns the house. Keeps your name off the radar." He explained it all: LLCs, trusts, asset shielding. My brain was spinning by the time he finished, but I was following enough to get the point. I could own this house without waving a red flag to the people who'd be lining up with their hands out, the second they caught a whiff of good news. "Now," he said, leaning back, "tax-wise, you'll owe capital gains if you sell. But if you keep it and rent it seasonally, it can cover costs and still bring in a decent income. It's prime location, vacation money." I stared at the ceiling like I could picture the place already. Ocean, sand, no loud neighbors, no swamp cooler clanking all night, a life I didn't even know how to imagine. "And if I want to stay there part-time?" I asked. He shrugged. "Perfectly legal. Many do." It sounded too good to be real, but it was real. And for once, I didn't want to screw it up by doing what I always did, sharing too much too soon and paying the price for it later. I signed the documents, paid the retainer, walked out of that office feeling like I was carrying 100 pounds of secret gold in my purse. But with it came this tight knot in my gut. Not guilt, not yet, just this nagging dread, because I knew exactly how my family would react if they found out. Mom would cry, hug me, then somehow bring up her property taxes or how her car needed new tires. Just until I get back on my feet. Dad would say something smug like, "Don't blow it all at once," and then make me feel guilty for not offering to help him. Tina? She'd post pictures of the house before I even saw it in person. Her kids would be calling it their summer home, and she'd still claim she was broke when the next tuition bill hit. Mark would probably call me the second after he found out, acting surprised but already talking about how he could get a gig out there, like it was his house too. Uncle Dennis would ask about the taxes, act like I was dumb for winning it, and then tell people I lucked into it because I was always looking for handouts. Only Aunt Ruth came to mind with anything close to warmth. She sent me birthday cards with $10 bills even when I told her not to. She made cookies for every single holiday, even Halloween, never asked for a thing. I sat on my couch that night, the one with the spring that jabs me in the thigh if I sit wrong, and opened a blank notepad. The house was mine, that was decided. But now I needed to decide something else. Who actually gave a damn about me when there wasn't anything to gain? And there was only one way to find out. I barely slept that night, just laid there, staring at the ceiling fan, while my brain ran circles around itself. I had this gift sitting in my lap, more than I ever dreamed of, and not a single person I could share it with. Not without getting bled dry. By 2 a.m, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook and a mug of tea I didn't drink. The idea hit me in a flash and stuck like a burr. If I wanted to know who gave a damn about me, not what I had, then I had to create a situation where I had nothing to offer. No gain, no payoff, just a crisis. I picked up a pen and started writing. Story. The dental office closes suddenly. The owner, Dr. Krieger, dies of a heart attack. No warning, no severance. I'm out of a job. Behind on rent. Truck needs repairs. I need $4,000 to stay afloat until I find work. I sat back and read it. Plausible. Close enough to my real life that no one would question it. I knew how this would sound to people. Manipulative, twisted. But I'd spent 35 years giving and watching it all get flushed. If this made me the villain, fine. I'd rather be the villain with answers than the fool without boundaries. The next day after work, I called Jill. She met me at the grind on Speedway, and I walked her through everything over 2 lattes. So let me get this straight, she said, eyes wide. You're going to fake a job loss and ask your family for help, just to see who actually steps up. Exactly. She leaned back and crossed her arms. Sam, that's nuts. You realize that, right? Yup. Manipulative as hell. Yup, she blinked. And you're doing it anyway. Damn right I am. She let out a long breath and stirred her coffee, then looked at me hard. You're gambling your whole relationship with your family, I leaned in. Jill, what relationship? They've never been there for me, not once. I just want to know if anyone would help me without expecting something back. She didn't argue after that, just nodded slowly. All right, but don't say I didn't warn you. When I got home, I made a list. At the top, targets. Mom and her husband Rick. She'd probably cry, but Rick would shut it down. Dad and his girlfriend Connie, cold as stone. He'd guilt-trip me for not planning better. Tina, always broke. Always posting about her newest pair of boots or dinner at some trendy place. She'd probably say something about timing. Mark, the eternal sob story. If he had $4, I'd be shocked. Uncle Dennis, loaded and proud of it. Moral backbone, as he called it. More like arrogant cheapskate. Cousins Hannah and Eric, wild cards. Hannah had a big heart but never followed through on anything. Eric was married into money but distant. And finally, Aunt Ruth. She'd be the only one who didn't blink. I'd bet my last dime on her being the one person who actually cared. I drew 2 columns, will offer and won't offer. I wrote Ruth's name in the will column and left the rest on the other side. I stared at the page for a long time. Then I tore it out, folded it, and stuck it in the back of my spiral notebook, the same one I used to track every family loan I never got back. This time, I wasn't looking for money, I was looking for truth. I made the first call the next morning during my lunch break, sat in my truck, staring at the steering wheel, then hit Mom and put the phone on speaker. She picked up on the second ring. Sammy, hey sweetie, everything okay? I took a deep breath and dropped into the script. No, not really. I've got some bad news. Dr. Krieger passed away, heart attack, total shock. The office is shutting down. No idea if we'll reopen. There was a pause. Oh my God, that's awful. I thought he was in good shape. Apparently not, I said. Anyway, I'm kinda stuck. I'm behind on rent and my truck needs repairs. I wouldn't be asking, but I'm really tight. I need around $4,000 to get through the next month or so. She gasped like she felt it in her soul. Oh honey, that's terrible. Yeah, I wouldn't ask if I had other options. She was quiet for a second, then let out a sigh. Sam, I wish I could help, but Rick and I just finished the kitchen reno. Cabinets, backsplash, new stove. It wiped us out. I mean wiped. Of course it did. We even put some on a credit card, she added, like that made it noble. Could you maybe ask your dad? He's usually better with money. There it was. Pass the buck in record time. Okay, I said flatly. Thanks anyway. I'm so sorry, baby, I really am. But things are just tight right now. I ended the call before she could launch into a 10-minute rundown of cabinet colors. Back in the office, I opened the spiral notebook to the back and jotted it down. Mom, no. Said, ask your dad. Kitchen renovation. That night, I texted my dad and asked if we could meet for lunch the next day. He picked the Blue Fig Cafe, his usual quiet spot where he could lecture without distractions. He showed up in golf gear, like always, and gave me a half hug before we sat down. So, he said, taking off his sunglasses. What's going on? I laid it out again. Office shut down, no income, bills piling up. Need some help to stay afloat. $4,000 if possible. He didn't even blink, just stirred his iced tea and nodded like a therapist. Well, he said finally, I'm sorry to hear that. But Sam, you've really got to start thinking long term. You're 35. You should have savings for emergencies like this. I bit the inside of my cheek. Dad, I didn't call you for a life lesson. He raised his eyebrows. I'm just saying, you've always flown by the seat of your pants. This kind of thing happens, and now you're stuck. I've been working nonstop for years. Then where's your cushion, he said, as if it was that simple. Look, I can't just pull from my retirement fund. That's locked in for the long haul. You know how irresponsible that would be. So was gambling every weekend and taking Connie on cruises. But sure, I'm not asking you to drain your 401k. Just anything. Alone. He shook his head. If I did this for you, I'd have to be prepared to do it for the rest of the family. And that's a slippery slope. I stared at him across the table, suddenly tired of the performance. Right. He didn't look guilty, just smug. Like he'd done his part by showing up and giving me a free lecture. We talked for 5 more minutes. Small talk about weather, Connie's cats, some show he thought I should watch. When the check came, he paid and said, Hang in there, kiddo, before walking out like a hero. I sat there with my hands in my lap, fingers twitching from biting back every word I wanted to throw at him. When I got home, I opened the notebook and wrote, Dad, no. Lectured about savings. Said retirement is untouchable. That was 2 down, 2 perfect performances of fake sympathy, all wrapped in excuses. Not a dime offered. The spiral notebook didn't lie. It never had. I pulled into Tina's driveway the next afternoon, already bracing myself. Her townhouse sat in one of those planned developments with matching mailboxes and community standards. She had a new SUV in the driveway and seasonal wreaths on the door. Real nice touches for someone always claiming she was broke. She opened the door with her usual fake happy energy. Hey, stranger, I forced a smile. Hey. The place smelled like vanilla candles and expensive shampoo. Hardwood floors, white kitchen, oversized furniture she definitely couldn't afford without help. I just put the baby down, but we can talk in the kitchen, she said, leading me past a giant wall canvas that said, live, laugh, love, like a damn threat. We sat across from each other, and I didn't waste time. Something happened, I said. The dental office is shutting down. Dr. Krieger died. Heart attack. Totally sudden. I've got nothing lined up yet, and I'm behind on rent and car repairs. Her eyes went wide, and her hand flew to her chest. Oh my God, Sam, that's awful. Yeah, I didn't want to ask, but I'm in a bind. I need about 4,000 to get through the next month, just until I find work. She blinked, mouth hanging open for a beat, then gave a sympathetic frown like she was on a talk show. Ugh, that's just terrible timing. We just booked our spring break trip to Maui. It was kind of a stretch already. Of course. And Ryan's tuition just went up again. Private school's no joke, she added. Like that explained everything. I'd pay you back, I said. Just need a cushion. She sighed, like this whole thing exhausted her. I wish I could, Sam, seriously. But everything's budgeted down to the penny right now. You know how it is. Yeah, I did. I just didn't live in a 3-bedroom townhouse with new quartz countertops. I stood up. All right, thanks anyway. Wait, don't be mad. I'm not. You sound mad. I'm not, I said again, sharper this time. She followed me to the door, still talking. You know I'd help if I could. Maybe try Mom or Dad. I didn't answer. I walked out, got in my truck, and sat for a minute while the engine coughed to life. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Back at home, I pulled out the notebook and wrote, Tina, no. Said trip to Maui and tuition wiped her out. I stared at her name on the page. Over the last decade, I'd helped her with first month's rent when her ex moved out, pitched in for her car down payment, and bought her groceries more times than I could count. Not one penny had ever come back. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat with it until the heat settled in my chest. Then I picked up my phone and called Mark. He answered on the second ring. Yo. Hey, got a second? Sure, he said. Background noise. TV maybe, a game or something. What's up? I repeated the story. Office shut down, behind on rent. Truck needs work, no paycheck coming in. There was a pause. Damn, that sucks. Yeah, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious, but I need about $4,000 to cover everything. Yikes, I'm completely tapped right now, Sam. Just paid rent, plus some old stuff I owed. I waited to see if anything else was coming. Nothing did. I see, he cleared his throat. I mean, maybe in a couple weeks, but right now I'm totally strapped. You know how it is? Right. Another beat of silence. All right, well, let me know how it goes, he said. Hope something turns around. Yeah, sure. I hung up without another word and opened the notebook again. Mark, no, said he's tapped. Maybe later. I stared at their names, Tina and Mark, sitting under Mom and Dad, like they belonged there. Because they did. It hit harder than I expected. I knew this would happen. I knew they'd flake, but something about hearing it, watching them sidestep and shrug, like I was asking for a favor too big or too awkward, it just hollowed me out. I wasn't just tracking who offered help. I was watching years of family debt, care, and sacrifice roll downhill into a pile of excuses. And the thing that burned the most? They didn't even pretend to try. I didn't give myself time to cool off after Mark. I just flipped to the next number in my contacts and called Uncle Dennis. He picked up after 3 rings. This is Dennis. Hey, it's Sam. Sam? He sounded surprised. We hadn't spoken in months. Yeah, sorry to bother you. I've had a bit of an emergency come up. He said, like he was already half tuned out. What kind? I launched into the script one more time. Dr. Krieger, heart attack, office shut down, no income, bills stacking up. I just need some help getting through the next few weeks. $4,000 would cover everything. He exhaled, long and loud, like I'd asked him to donate a kidney. Sam, I've got to be honest with you. I don't think giving you money is going to solve anything. I'm not asking you to solve my life. I just need help. That's what I mean, he said. You've always struggled with money. Giving you more would just be enabling poor choices. I stared at the wall. What choices? Working 60 hours a week and not going on vacations. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to be honest. If I bailed out every relative who came to me with a crisis, I'd be out of money myself. I didn't bother arguing. Dennis had made up his mind before I'd even dialed. All right, thanks anyway. Don't take it personally, he said, like that made it better. I hung up without another word and wrote it down. Uncle Dennis, no, called it enabling poor choices. I gave myself 5 minutes. Then I called Hannah. She picked up immediately. Hey Sam, long time? I explained everything again, trying not to sound robotic. She listened, made all the right noises. "Wow, that's awful. I'm so sorry," she said. "I don't know what we can do, but let me talk to Mason and see what's possible. Can I call you back later today?" "Sure," I said. "Thank you." We hung up, and I actually felt a tiny flicker of hope. Same thing with Eric. I texted, he called right away and said, "That sucks, Sam. I'll talk to Karen and see if we can swing something." Neither of them called back. Days passed. No texts, no follow-ups. I sent a couple feelers, just checking in, and got silence in return. I didn't chase them. Just opened the notebook again. Hannah said she'd check. Never followed up. Eric, same. Ghosted. The longer this went on, the colder it made me feel. Not just the rejections, not just the silence. It was the realization that none of them even pretended to care past that first phone call. I thought that would be the end of it. Just quiet disappointment. But then Tina called. "Hey," she said. "Just wanted to give you a heads up." I braced myself. What now? I had dinner at Mom's and Uncle Dennis was there. He said you called him asking for money. I paused. "Okay." "And he told everyone you've always been bad with money and it's not surprising she's in another hole." My chest went tight. "Seriously?" "Yeah." Mom didn't say anything, but Rick nodded like he agreed. Ruth wasn't there, thank God. I leaned back against the wall and closed my eyes. So now it's a family story. Looks like it. Sorry. I should have expected it. Dennis had always loved being the authority on everyone else's problems. But hearing that he was using my fake crisis to prop up some long-running narrative about how irresponsible I was, that cut deeper than the money. This wasn't just a test anymore. It was exposing things I hadn't even asked for, who they thought I was. Not just unwilling to help, but eager to twist the knife behind my back. After I hung up with Tina, I sat on the couch with the notebook in my lap. I flipped back through the pages. Mom, Dad, Tina, Mark, Dennis, the cousins. All different flavors of the same answer. No help, no hesitation to judge, no follow-through. I underlined Dennis's name in red. Not just useless, dangerous. I was flipping through the notebook, wondering if I even had it in me to call Aunt Ruth, when my phone buzzed. Aunt Ruth? Calling. I stared at the screen for a second, heart thudding. Then I answered. "Sam? Honey?" Her voice was soft, a little shaky. "I just heard what happened. Tina mentioned it and, oh sweetheart, are you okay?" I swallowed hard. "I'm managing." She didn't waste time. "Let's meet, tomorrow morning. Coffee at my place or anywhere you want. You pick." I opened my mouth to deflect, but she cut me off. "No arguing. 9:30. You need a hug and I need to see your face." I smiled without meaning to. "Okay. Yeah, I'll be there." The next morning, I pulled up to Ruth's tiny beige house on the south side, tucked between a shuttered laundromat and a dusty lot that hadn't seen grass in 20 years. She opened the door before I knocked, wrapped me in a hug that lasted longer than any of the phone calls I'd had all week. She led me to the kitchen, poured us both coffee, and set a small white envelope between us on the table. "I don't know the whole situation," she said, "but I know you're struggling. I had some money set aside from a little inheritance last year. It's not much, but it's yours." I stared at the envelope like it might explode. "Ruth, I know you didn't ask. That's the point." She slid it closer. I opened it, slowly. Inside was a neat stack of 20s and 50s. My throat tightened. "There's $2,500 in there," she said. "I was saving it for a new furnace, but you're more important than heat." I blinked hard. "Jesus, Ruth. I'm serious, and if things don't turn around soon, my guest room's yours. No rent, no guilt, for as long as you need." I had no words, none that wouldn't crack my voice in half. "You've always worked hard, Sam. I know you. I see you." I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that until she said it. "Are you sure?" I finally asked. "This is a lot." She waved a hand like it was spare change. "I'd give more if I had it. I'd take out a loan if I thought it'd help. Family's supposed to show up." I nodded slowly, still staring at the envelope. Everyone else had an excuse. Ruth didn't even ask for details. Just showed up, ready. "I'm paying this back," I said quietly. "You don't have to. I will." She reached across the table, placed her hand over mine, and gave it a little squeeze. I didn't give it to get anything back. I gave it because I love you. I didn't cry, not there. But when I got back in the truck, I sat in the driveway for 10 minutes and let it hit me. Ruth didn't have the money. She wasn't sitting on some retirement cushion or booking trips to Maui. But she saw me drowning and threw me a rope anyway. No speeches, no conditions, just love. I couldn't keep the lie going, not with Ruth. 2 days later, I called her and asked if she'd come over for dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and garlic bread. But I cleaned my little duplex like it was going on the market. She brought a pie. I didn't know what sounded good, she said, handing it to me at the door. But everyone likes pie. We sat at the kitchen table, plates mostly empty. The envelope she gave me still untouched in my purse. I watched her pour more iced tea and knew I had to say it. There's something I need to tell you, I started. My voice was steady, but my hands were sweating. She looked up, calm as ever. Okay. I lied. About losing my job. She blinked. What? I didn't lose it. Dr. Krieger's fine. Still cranky, still alive. I made up the story. She didn't say anything for a long second. Just set her glass down, folded her hands, and looked at me. Why? I took a deep breath. Because I needed to know who would actually be there for me. Without expecting anything, without judgment or strings. She nodded slowly, not shocked, just processing. You tested them. Yeah, I did. She didn't yell. Didn't guilt trip me, just exhaled through her nose, eyes soft. I wish you'd felt like you could come to me first. Just talk. I didn't want to drag you into it, but I had to know. Everyone else either made excuses or disappeared. You were the only one who showed up. No questions, no hesitation. She was quiet, but there was no anger in it. Just something like sadness. You know what hurts, she finally said. That someone like you had to test the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. I know, I said. It's messed up. Then I reached for my purse, pulled out the manila envelope, and slid it across the table. I can't take this. Yes, you can, she said. No, I said firmly. Because I don't need it, and because I have something else I need to tell you. I opened my phone and pulled up the email, the one from the photo contest. I turned the screen toward her. What's this? She asked. I entered a photo contest 6 months ago, forgot about it. I won. The grand prize was a beachfront house in Florida. It's worth over $3 million. She stared at the screen, then at me. You're serious? Dead serious. Her mouth opened, then closed again. And you haven't told anyone? Just you. Why me? I looked her in the eyes. Because you were the only one who didn't need to be tested. She sat back in her chair, still stunned. I've been meeting with lawyers, I continued. It's all legal. I'm putting it in a holding company. No one knows it's mine, but I'm not keeping it all for myself. She raised an eyebrow. Sam, I want to help you. You've always looked out for me. I want to make sure you're taken care of. I want to, I said. Seriously. A trust for your living expenses. Maybe even buy you a place near the beach house. A real one. Where you can bake all the pies you want. She smiled, but her eyes were glassy. I never expected anything like this, she said quietly. I know. She took a sip of her tea, then looked down at her hands. You know, years ago, my ex-husband cleaned out our joint account and vanished. I had $63 left. Had to start over with nothing. That's when I learned what people are really made of. Why didn't you ever tell anyone? Because people love to judge. And they forget fast when it's not happening to them. I nodded. That landed hard. She reached across the table and took my hand again. You don't owe me anything, Sam, but thank you. No, I said. Thank you for being exactly who you are. I scheduled the meeting for Sunday afternoon. Neutral ground, Ruth's church hall. She had the key and it was free. No distractions, no TV in the background, no easy exits. I told everyone it was important, that I had an update. No one asked questions. Curiosity always outweighed effort in my family. By 2 o'clock, they trickled in one by one. Tina showed up first, sipping iced coffee and checking her phone. Mark came with a hoodie and sunglasses like he was hungover. Mom and Rick walked in whispering, already tense. Dad brought Connie, who didn't even try to smile. Uncle Dennis nodded stiffly like he was attending a deposition. Hannah and Eric hovered near the snack table, pretending to be polite. Ruth stood beside me while I stacked the last chairs. Then I stepped forward. "Thanks for coming. I won't keep you long," I said. "I just wanted to let you all know I'm fine. I'm working again. Better job, more hours, stable income." Everyone relaxed a little. Connie exhaled. Hannah smiled. "But that's not why I called this meeting." I paused. Let it hang. "I asked each of you for help recently. I told you I lost my job. I told you I needed $4,000 to get through the month. No one said anything." "I didn't need $4,000, I said. I needed clarity." Tina frowned. "Wait, what?" "I made it up, the job loss, the money problem. None of it was real." Mark sat up. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." "Why would you do that?" Mom asked, already defensive. "To see who would actually show up," I said. "Without gain, without pressure, just because I needed help." "That's manipulative," Dennis said. "Maybe," I replied. "But it worked." Tina shifted in her seat. "Sam, that's not fair. I didn't say no because I didn't care. I just couldn't help at the time." "You booked a trip to Maui," I said flatly. "Well, yeah, but we'd already put down the deposit." "I can't just cancel." "I didn't ask you to cancel," I said. "I just asked if you could help. You couldn't. That's fine. But let's not pretend it was anything else." Mark jumped in. "Okay, but I told you I was strapped. I didn't blow you off." "You ended the call in under 2 minutes." Dad cleared his throat. "This whole thing feels like a trap." "No," I said. "It was an answer to 20 years of being treated like a fallback plan. I've loaned money, fixed messes, babysat, filled tanks, bought groceries, and no one ever offered it back." "I didn't ask for all that," Rick muttered. "No," I said. "You just benefited from it." Hannah raised a hand like she was in school. "Okay, yeah, we didn't follow up. But that doesn't mean we don't care. It means you didn't act like you did, which is all I needed to see." Uncle Dennis leaned forward. "You're standing here trying to make us feel guilty over a fake sob story? That's rich." "No. I'm telling you this so we're clear. I'm not angry. I'm done being confused." Mom folded her arms. "You blindsided us." "No," I said calmly. I finally drew a line. Silence. I looked around the room, one face at a time. "I'm not looking for apologies or explanations. I just want you all to understand. Going forward, I won't be the one holding the net anymore. I'm not your plan B. I'm not your emergency fund. I'm not your backup babysitter or free therapist." Tina scoffed. "You think we're all using you?" I stared at her. "Yes." No one said anything after that. I nodded once. Meeting's over. People stood slowly, some awkward hugs, some fake smiles. Dennis walked out without a word. Mark muttered something about being busy anyway. Connie and Dad didn't look at me. Tina said, "I love you, but this was a lot," before leaving in a huff. Only Ruth stayed behind. We picked up cups and napkins in silence. I took a deep breath. "Too much?" "No," she said. "Not even close." I turned toward her. "I didn't mean to start a war." "You didn't," she said. "You just stopped fighting theirs." We finished cleaning in 20 minutes. I walked her to her car, the desert heat still clinging to the pavement. Before she got in, she looked at me and smiled. "Feels lighter now, doesn't it?" I nodded. "Yeah, it really does." 1 year later, I was drinking coffee on a second-story porch with an ocean breeze cutting through the morning heat. The house was everything the contest promised. Bright, clean, quiet. My name was nowhere on it, but it was mine all the same. I lived there part-time, split between Florida and Tucson, depending on the season and how much I could stand being around people who still called me kiddo, like they'd ever protected me from anything. I rented the house out short-term when I wasn't there. The money covered more than I needed. The rest went into a nonprofit. I started on a napkin and built out of spite a small crew of retired contractors and weekend handymen who helped seniors in town keep their homes livable. Fixing porches, installing railings, changing light bulbs for people no one else remembered. It felt good to give, but only when I chose to. Ruth lived 12 minutes away in a one-story bungalow we bought under her name. Small kitchen, screened-in porch, low maintenance. I told her the down payment came from a settlement. She didn't ask questions. I stocked her pantry, paid her utilities through the trust, and made sure she never needed to worry about another furnace again. She baked pies every Thursday and brought extras to the community center. We didn't talk much about the family. Every once in a while, I got a birthday text or a thinking of you email. I responded when I felt like it. Short, polite, distant. Tina messaged once about needing a reference for a school grant. I filled it out anonymously. Mark got in a car wreck a few months back, and someone paid his ER bill before it went to collections. He still had no idea it was me. They didn't need to. The prize didn't make anyone better or worse. It just made the truth louder. They were always going to be who they were, and now I could be who I was, without guilt. I wasn't their savior. I wasn't their safety net. I wasn't small or desperate or waiting to be seen. I sat back in the porch chair and listened to the waves crashing down the street. My phone buzzed with a text from Ruth. "Grocery run today. Want anything?" I smiled. "Strawberries and coffee filters," I wrote back. "See you soon." I didn't need a big crowd. Just one person who always showed up.